The emergency alarm screamed through the cockpit as Marcus Reed fought against the control panels that had become completely unresponsive, his transport vessel spinning wildly through Zalmor's upper atmosphere like a leaf caught in a hurricane. The solar storm that had engulfed his ship coming from absolutely nowhere, frying every system he depended on for survival, his knuckles white against the useless steering mechanism as the purple and crimson landscape rushed up to meet him with terrifying speed. The impact came hard and violent, throwing him against his restraints as the ship tore through crystalline trees before finally grinding to a halt in a canyon of dark stone. Marcus hung suspended for a moment in the sudden silence that followed, his ears ringing, blood trickling from a cut above his eyebrow. Everything hurt, but he was alive, and that was something. He unbuckled himself carefully, dropping to what was now the floor of his sideways vessel. The emergency hatch groaned as he forced it open, spilling out onto alien soil that crunched beneath his boots like broken glass. The air was breathable, according to its suit's readings, but thin, making each breath feel incomplete. The sky above was a swirling mixture of violet and deep orange, 2 moons already visible despite it being daytime. Come on, Marcus muttered as he pulled himself back into the wreckage, searching desperately for the emergency beacon. He found it, crushed beneath a collapsed bulkhead, completely destroyed. His backup communicator was in pieces, scattered across the deck like confetti. He was stranded on an uncharted world with no way to call for help. The realization settled over him like ice water. He was an engineer, trained for deep space missions, but his expertise meant nothing if he couldn't repair his long-range transmitter. He needed parts, rare components that might not even exist on this planet. Marcus grabbed his toolkit and scanner, deciding that sitting in the wreck wouldn't solve anything. The canyon stretched before him in both directions. Walls of dark stone shot through with veins of luminescent crystal that pulsed with faint purple light. It was beautiful in an otherworldly way, unlike anything he'd seen in 15 years of space exploration. He activated his scanner, searching for any technology or settlements. The device pinged almost immediately, detecting energy signatures deeper in the canyon. Marcus followed the readings, his boots crunching on the crystalline ground. The temperature was dropping as the sun began its descent, casting long shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. He didn't notice when he crossed an invisible boundary marked by carved stones, didn't realize he'd entered territory that had been forbidden to outsiders for countless generations. The attack came without warning. One moment he was alone, the next a figure had materialized from the shadows, moving with impossible speed and grace. Marcus found himself frozen as a blade of pure energy hummed to life inches from his throat, its wielder stepping into the dying light with predatory confidence. She was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. Her skin was a deep purple that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light, smooth and flawless. Her hair was long and silver white, flowing past her shoulders in waves that caught the canyon's bioluminescent glow. She stood nearly as tall as him, her body athletic and powerful, encased in armor that looked like it had been grown rather than forged, pulsing with the same purple luminescence as the crystal around them. But it was her eyes that held him captive. They were violet, deep and intense, with pupils that were slightly vertical like a cat's. Ancient and knowing, they studied him with an intelligence that made him feel completely exposed, as if she could see through every defense he might raise. Her face was angular and beautiful, with high cheekbones and full lips that were currently pressed into a hard line. "Human," she spoke, her voice resonating with harmonics that no human throat could produce. Each word measured and precise, carrying the weight of absolute authority. "You violate sacred ground. The penalty is death." Marcus's hand had started toward his sidearm purely on instinct, but he stopped himself. Everything about her posture, the casual way she held that lethal weapon, told him that any aggressive move would be his last. Instead, he slowly raised both hands, palms open in universal surrender. "I didn't know," he said honestly, keeping his voice steady despite his racing heart. "My ship crashed about a kilometer back. I'm just looking for materials to repair it. I mean no disrespect." She circled him slowly, her bare feet making no sound on the crystalline floor, the energy blade never wavering from its position near his vital arteries. He could feel heat radiating from the weapon, smell ozone and something else, something that reminded him of thunderstorms on Earth. "Fear," Shiel said, leaning closer, the blade humming inches from his throat. "What teaches respect for powers beyond comprehension?" Her violet eyes searched his face intensely, looking for something. "Do you fear me, human?" Marcus looked at her, really looked at her. He saw the weapon that could end him in a heartbeat, saw the alien features that marked her as something beyond his experience. But he also saw the intelligence in those eyes, the discipline in her stance, the fact that she'd chosen to speak before acting, chosen to warn rather than simply execute. In that moment, something inside him made a choice that defied logic. "No," Marcus said quietly, his voice steady and sincere. "I don't fear you at all. I actually trust you more than anyone I've ever met." The energy blade flickered. Her eyes widened slightly, the first crack in her warrior composure. In all her years as guardian of the deep territories, no being had ever responded to her with anything but terror. Respect born of fear, awe born of reputation, but trust? Immediate and unconditional trust from a stranger? It was incomprehensible. "You speak madness," she said, though the blade lowered several inches. "Trust is earned through blood and time, forged in the fires of shared danger. You know nothing of me." "I know you could have killed me the moment I crossed your boundary," Marcus said, taking a small step closer, carefully watching her reaction. "But you didn't. You chose conversation over execution. That tells me who you are beneath the warrior. That tells me everything I need to know." For a long moment she simply stared at him, the blade hanging forgotten in her hand. Her purple skin seemed to darken slightly, a flush of confusion or perhaps something else. In her culture, trust was the most sacred bond, harder to forge than star metal, more precious than victory in 1,000 battles. The blade deactivated with a soft hum. "You are either the bravest being I have encountered, or the most foolish," she said slowly, studying his face, searching for deception and finding none. "I am Zara, guardian of the deep vaults, protector of the sacred flame territories." Marcus Reed, engineer, occasional trouble finder, and apparently the luckiest crash survivor in the galaxy. "Lucky?" Her head tilted slightly, a gesture that seemed curious rather than threatening. "I crashed on a hostile world and met someone extraordinary. I'd say that's pretty fortunate." Something flickered across her features, an emotion she quickly suppressed, but not before Marcus saw it. "Warmth. Your ship," Zara said, finally, her voice carrying a different tone now, softer somehow.
Unexpected alliance. Marcus led Zara through the canyon, back toward his crashed vessel, acutely aware of her presence behind him. She moved with absolute silence, her footsteps making no sound on the crystalline ground. Occasionally, he'd glance back to make sure she was still there, finding those violet eyes studying him with an intensity that made his pulse quicken for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. "How long have you been guardian of these territories?" he asked, trying to break the heavy silence that had settled between them. 73 cycles, Zara replied, her voice carrying easily in the thin air. "What you would call years. My people live much longer than humans. I have seen empires rise and fall beyond your atmosphere." Marcus processed this information, trying not to let his surprise show. She looked young by any standard, her features smooth and unlined, but there was something ancient in her eyes, a depth of experience that spoke of decades watching and waiting. They reached his ship as the last light faded from the sky. The wreckage looked even worse in the dim glow from Zalmor's twin moons, one silver and one amber, casting everything in an ethereal, dual-tone light. Zara circled the vessel slowly, her fingers trailing along the torn metal, examining the damage with professional interest. "Your transmitter is completely destroyed," she said, pointing to what had been his long-range communications array, now nothing but twisted metal and fused circuits. "And your power core is cracked, leaking radiation slowly. You would have died in your sleep within days." "That's cheerful," Marcus muttered, climbing into the wreckage to retrieve his emergency supplies. "So what you're saying is I'm completely stranded." "What I am saying is that you need help." Zara's voice came from directly behind him. He hadn't heard her climb in. When he turned, she was standing in the cramped space, close enough that he could smell her, something like ozone and night-blooming flowers, exotic and intoxicating. "And I suppose guardians don't typically offer help to trespassers?" Marcus said, holding her gaze. "No," she admitted, her expression unreadable. "Typically, I would have ended your life, taken your body to the council as proof of my vigilance, and claimed your vessel's remains for our forges. She paused, something shifting in those violet eyes. But you did something no being has done in 73 years. What's that? You made me question my certainty. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Marcus felt his breath catch as she stepped closer, her hand reaching up to touch the cut above his eyebrow with surprising gentleness. Her fingers were warm against his skin, the touch sending electricity through his nervous system. "This needs treatment," she said softly. "Zalmor's atmosphere carries bacteria that would infect your wound. Come, my workshop has medical supplies compatible with human biology." "You have human medical supplies?" Marcus asked as they exited the ship, surprise evident in his voice. "We study all potential threats," Zara replied, but there was something in her tone that suggested it was more than just military preparation. Knowledge is survival. She led him deeper into the canyon system, through passages that seemed to open at her touch, the walls themselves responding to her presence. Eventually, they emerged into a vast underground chamber that took Marcus's breath away. It was part workshop, part armory, part living space, all carved from living stone and crystal that provided its own illumination. The walls were lined with weapons and tools, some he recognized, many he didn't. Workbenches held half-finished projects, metalwork that seemed to blend technology and art into something transcendent. But what caught his attention was the living area. Soft materials draped over carved stone furniture, plants that glowed with bioluminescence, creating an atmosphere that was both alien and oddly intimate. "Sit," Zara commanded, gesturing to a bench near one of the workstations. She retrieved a kit from a cabinet, returning with various instruments and solutions. "This will sting." She wasn't lying. Marcus hissed as she cleaned the wound with something that burned like liquid fire. But her touch remained gentle, almost tender. Her face was close to his as she worked, giving him an unobstructed view of those intricate patterns that flowed beneath her purple skin. They seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat, hypnotic and beautiful. "These markings," he said quietly, "are they natural or decorative?" "They are my life song. Every Zalmorian carries the story of their existence written in their skin. Battles fought, bonds formed, losses endured. Everything that shapes us becomes part of the pattern." "They're beautiful," Marcus said, and meant it. Zara's hands stilled, her violet eyes lifting to meet his. For a moment, neither of them moved, the air between them charged with something electric, something dangerous. Then she stepped back, breaking the spell, returning to treating his wound with professional efficiency. "Your ship can be repaired," she said, her voice carefully neutral, "but not with the materials you carried. You need quantum-grade circuitry for the transmitter and a power core from my people's forges. Such items are not freely given to outsiders." "But," Marcus prompted, sensing there was more. "But I could requisition them under my authority as guardian," she finished, sealing the wound with a transparent gel that immediately began promoting healing. "In exchange, you would need to offer something of equal value." "I don't have much to offer," Marcus admitted. "My ship's cargo is scientific equipment, nothing particularly valuable." "Not materials," Zara said, turning to face him fully, her expression serious. "Knowledge, your expertise as an engineer. My people have struggled with certain technologies, power systems that interface with biological components. You could teach our artificers, share your understanding." "You'd trust me with that?" Marcus asked, surprised. "Access to your technology? Your people?" "You trusted me with your life when logic dictated fear. Perhaps I can learn from your example." Marcus stood, moving closer to her, drawn by an attraction that defied rational explanation. They were from different worlds, different species, yet something fundamental connected them, something that transcended biology. "How long would the repairs take?" he asked, her eyes never leaving his. "Several weeks, perhaps longer depending on how quickly you can teach our artificers. You would need to stay here, in the deep territories, under my protection." "Your protection?" Marcus smiled slightly. "Does that come with more death threats, or have we moved past that?" "That depends entirely on your behavior, human." But there was amusement in her voice now, warmth that softened the words. "Marcus," he corrected gently. "My name is Marcus." "Marcus," she repeated, the syllables rolling off her tongue in a way that made his name sound like music, exotic and beautiful. "It suits you." They stood there in the dim glow of the workshop, the space between them charged with possibility. Marcus knew he should be thinking about repairs, about survival, about getting home. But all he could focus on was the way the light played across her purple skin, the intelligence in her eyes, the subtle grace of her movements. "I should show you where you'll sleep," Zara said finally, breaking the moment. But he noticed she didn't move away immediately. The deep territories are extensive, easy to become lost without a guide. "Lucky I have the best guide on the planet, then." Flattery will not excuse future trespasses, but she was almost smiling, a slight curve to those lips that transformed her features from intimidating to breathtaking. As she led him deeper into her sanctuary, Marcus realized that crashing on Zalmor might have been the best accident of his life. He'd come to this world expecting nothing but survival. Instead, he'd found something he hadn't even known he was searching for. Someone who saw him not as human or alien, engineer or explorer, but simply as Marcus. And in her eyes, reflected in that violet gaze, he saw the same recognition, the same surprise at finding connection in the most impossible place. The journey ahead would be complicated, filled with cultural barriers and practical obstacles. But as Zara glanced back at him over her shoulder, her silver hair catching the crystal light, Marcus knew one thing with absolute certainty. He wasn't in any hurry to leave.
The sacred ritual. 5 days had passed since Marcus began working with Zara's people, teaching the Zelmorian artificers about human engineering while learning their biological integration techniques. The work was fascinating, but it was the evenings he lived for, when Zara would find him and they'd talk for hours in her workshop, sharing stories of their worlds. Tonight was different. "The Festival of Twin Moons begins at sunset," Zara announced, entering the workshop where Marcus was calibrating a power coupling. "You should witness it. No human has ever seen our sacred celebration." "Are you sure that's allowed?" Marcus asked, setting down his tools. "I am guardian," she replied with quiet authority. "What I permit is allowed." The festival grounds were carved into a massive natural amphitheater deep within the canyon system. Hundreds of Zelmorians gathered as the twin moons rose together, their combined light painting everything in silver and amber. Marcus stood at the edge, acutely aware that every purple-skinned warrior present could kill him effortlessly. Then the drums began. Zara emerged from the central temple wearing ceremonial armor that seemed made of liquid starlight. It clung to her athletic form, accentuating every curve while maintaining the dignity of a warrior. Her silver hair was unbound, flowing past her shoulders, and her purple skin seemed to glow with inner fire. She began to dance. It was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen, part martial display, part spiritual expression. Every movement precise and powerful, telling stories of battles won and sacrifices made. Her body flowed through forms that were both deadly and beautiful, the crowd chanting in rhythm with her steps. Marcus couldn't breathe. When the dance concluded, Zara's eyes found his across the crowd, violet orbs burning with intensity. She approached slowly, her chest rising and falling from exertion, small droplets of moisture glistening on her purple skin. "Come," she said quietly, taking his hand without hesitation, ignoring the shocked whispers from her people. "Walk with me." She led him away from the festival, up winding paths to a plateau overlooking the canyon. The twin moons hung huge and brilliant above them, casting everything in ethereal light. They sat on smooth stone, still warm from the day's heat. "That was incredible," Marcus said softly. "You were incredible." "The dance tells my life song," Zara replied, her shoulder touching his. "Every warrior performs it once, revealing their true self to the clan." She paused, vulnerability entering her voice. "I wanted you to see me, truly see me." "I do see you." Marcus turned to face her, reaching up to cup her cheek, his palm warm against her purple skin. "I've seen you from the moment you held that blade to my throat. Not the guardian, not the warrior, but you, Zara." She leaned into his touch, her eyes closing briefly. When they opened again, they were filled with conflict.
My people forbid bonds with outsiders, especially humans. The wounds of the past run deep. Then help me understand, Marcus said, his thumb tracing the patterns on her cheek. Tell me what happened. Zara took a shuddering breath. 50 cycles ago, humans came promising friendship. Our elders welcomed them, shared our knowledge, our resources. Her voice hardened. They repaid trust with betrayal, tried to enslave our people, take our world. We drove them away, but the scars remain. I'm sorry, Marcus said sincerely. I can't undo what they did, but I'm not them. I would never betray you. I know, she admitted, turning her face to press a kiss against his palm, the gesture achingly tender. That terrifies me. Trusting you goes against everything I was taught, yet I cannot stop. Then don't, Marcus whispered, leaning closer. Don't stop. Their lips met under the twin moons, tentative at first, exploring this new intimacy between species, between worlds. Zara's lips were warm and soft, tasting of something sweet and exotic. The kiss deepened as she pressed closer, her hand coming up to tangle in his hair. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Zara rested her forehead against his. This is forbidden, she breathed, dangerous for us both. I don't care, Marcus replied, his arms wrapping around her, pulling her against him, feeling the warmth of her body through the ceremonial armor. Being without you would be more dangerous. She kissed him again, harder this time, passion and longing mixing with desperation. Her hands explored his shoulders, his back, memorizing him through touch. He responded in kind, marveling at the silty texture of her purple skin, the way her body fit against him perfectly despite their differences. Marcus, she whispered against his lips, I have lived 73 years without feeling this, without wanting something beyond duty. Her violet eyes were luminous in the moonlight. You have awakened something I thought dead. Then let it live, he said, kissing her temple, her cheek, the elegant line of her neck. They held each other as the twin moons completed their arc across the sky, knowing that dawn would bring complications, that their people's histories stood between them like walls. But for tonight, under alien stars, they had each other. And that was enough.
The choice. Morning came too quickly. Marcus woke in Zara's workshop where she'd insisted he stay, closer to her protection. He found her standing at the entrance, her posture tense, speaking with another Zalmorian warrior whose armor marked him as high-ranking. Guardian Zara, the warrior's voice was cold. Commander Thane demands your presence. The human ship nears completion. Decisions must be made. Marcus dressed quickly and followed as Zara led him through passages to a vast council chamber. Dozens of Zalmorian elders sat in a semicircle, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Commander Thane stood at the center, his purple skin darker than Zara's, his eyes hard as stone. Engineer Marcus Reed, Thane's voice echoed through the chamber. You have fulfilled your contract, taught our artificers well. Your vessel is repaired, fueled, ready for departure. I appreciate everything your people have done, Marcus replied carefully, acutely aware of Zara standing rigid beside him. Yet you linger, Thane continued, his gaze sharp. Guardian Zara has shown you unprecedented favor. Some say she has forgotten her duty, become compromised by human influence. Commander, Zara's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. I have forgotten nothing. My duty remains absolute. Then prove it. Thane gestured and another warrior entered, tall and powerful, his armor bearing marks of countless battles. Kovar challenges the human's honor, claims he has seduced our guardian through deception. If Marcus refuses combat, he leaves Zalmor immediately. If he accepts and loses, he dies. If he wins, he may speak his petition to remain. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Kovar was clearly a trained killer, probably trained by Zara herself. This wasn't a fight. It was an execution. I accept, Marcus said before Zara could protest. No! Zara grabbed his arm, her violet eyes wide with fear. You cannot. Kovar has trained for decades. This is murder. It's the only way, Marcus said quietly. touching her cheek despite the watching crowd. "Trust me." The combat circle was drawn in the same amphitheater where Zara had danced. Kovar entered wielding twin energy blades, moving with predatory grace. Marcus had only a single blade, borrowed and unfamiliar in his grip. "For speaking pretty words and corrupting our guardian, you die, human." The attack came fast and brutal. Marcus barely managed to deflect the first strike, the impact sending shocks through his arm. Kovar was stronger, faster, more experienced. Within seconds, Marcus was bleeding from a dozen shallow cuts, being driven back toward the circle's edge. Then he remembered watching Zara dance, the way she moved, the patterns she'd traced. Marcus stopped retreating. Instead, he dropped low and rolled, coming up inside Kovar's guard, his blade slashing not at his warrior, but at his weapon's power coupling. The energy blade flickered and died. Before Kovar could react, Marcus had swept his legs, sending the larger warrior crashing down. Marcus's blade hummed at Kovar's throat, mirroring that first moment with Zara. "Yield," Marcus commanded. "Impossible," Kovar breathed, genuine respect in his eyes. "You fight like one of us." "I had a good teacher," Marcus said, extending his hand to help Kovar up. The gesture shocked the assembled crowd. Enemies didn't show mercy, didn't offer respect. But Marcus wasn't Zalmorian. He was human, and he did things differently. Commander Thane stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "You have won the right to speak. What is your petition?" Marcus turned to face Zara, who stood frozen at the circle's edge, tears streaming down her purple cheeks. "I petition to stay on Zalmor permanently, not as visitor or prisoner, but as bondmate to Guardian Zara, if she'll have me." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. "You understand what you ask," Thane said seriously. "A bonding is eternal. You would become Zalmorian in all but blood, subject to our laws, our customs. You would never return to human space." "I understand," Marcus replied. "I've spent 15 years exploring the galaxy, searching for something I couldn't name. I found it here, found her. I'm not leaving." "Zara," Thane turned to her, "as guardian, as warrior, what say you?" Zara crossed the circle in 3 strides, grabbing Marcus and pulling him into a fierce kiss that left no doubt about her answer. When she finally released him, she turned to face the council. "I have spent 73 years alone, believing duty meant sacrifice of self. This human showed me that trust is not weakness, that opening your heart doesn't diminish your strength." She took Marcus's hand, their fingers intertwining. "I choose him. I choose us." "This is unprecedented," an elder spoke up. "Then let us set a precedent," Thane replied, surprising everyone. "Zara has served with honor beyond measure. If this human makes her strong rather than weak, who are we to deny her happiness?" He looked at Marcus. "But know this, human. If you betray her, betray us, there will be no mercy." "I wouldn't expect any," Marcus said firmly.